And we had hoped, when we defended Tulsi Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence, that there would be some voices in the Trump administration that would get in the way here and would understand what the stakes are. And maybe they do. Maybe this is just, front-facing public relations. But Tulsi Gabbard has completely walked back her position on Yemen that, earned her the favor of anti-war forces in America.
Disease. There are millions of Yemeni people who are on the brink of death from famine, disease, lack of access to food and water, basic medicine and healthcare. Thousands of Yemeni civilians have died.
This is Tulsi Gabbard in 2018 on the House floor.
In this genocidal war being waged by Saudi Arabia with support from the United States.
It's absolutely outrageous that the United States has continued its support for years now for Saudi Arabia's genocidal war in Yemen that has killed thousands and thousands of innocent Yemeni people and caused mass starvation and suffering, a cholera epidemic, the worst humanitarian crisis in the world in Yemen.
Congress finally passed legislation to end U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's genocidal war in Yemen. Now this bill is sitting on President Trump's desk, awaiting his signature or veto. Now, he's already threatened to veto this bill, which just reveals how he cares more about what Saudi Arabia wants than what the American people want. You saw Trump's rhetoric on the campaign trail about Saudi Arabia, against United States support for Saudi Arabia, calling them out for what they are, and now refusing to end U.S. military support for this genocidal war in Yemen that Saudi Arabia is waging, that's created the worst humanitarian crisis of our generation, because he says, well, he doesn't want to risk a multi-billion-dollar arms deal.
Okay, we get it. Let's get to 2025. And this was Tulsi Gabbard's first trip to India to meet with Prime Minister Modi. And she's giving an interview to NDTV, the Indian broadcaster.
Trump's leadership, going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So
a total walk back now that she's in power, but not surprising, and misleading comments as well. If the Trump administration forced Israel to abide by the ceasefire terms in Gaza, there wouldn't be an issue in the Red Sea. And it was never going to affect U.S. shipping in the first place. It was going to affect Israeli shipping. But we've seen her switch positions on so many things. She's got she doesn't have two faces. She's got six faces. I mean, she went from supporting Bernie to supporting Biden to supporting Trump to making some noises about Israel wrongly shooting protesters in Gaza in the legs to then declaring Hamas plan to take over the world. It's all going in one direction. She's made let's call it a compromise with the national security state. Oh, well, that's what DC does to people. It doesn't seem like there are many forces in the way right now of the war in Yemen. There may be more, and Tucker Carlson has condemned Trump for intimating that he might wage war in Iran. He hasn't condemned him, but he's issued his opposition to that war. I don't know if the MAGA base really wants war with Iran, but I'm not seeing much opposition. And just as in Gaza, we've seen the U.S. attack one of the only cancer hospitals in Yemen. I mean, this is the aftermath of a U.S. bombing on the Great Prophet Hospital for cancer tumors in Sada City. And the Trump administration has suggested that the bombings will continue for weeks until the Houthis just give up on their principles. Israel must be able to commit genocide without any resistance. Marjorie Taylor Greene has expressed opposition to this. Ann Coulter has expressed opposition and said, why are we doing this for Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually, I don't have the tweet in front of me. She referred to a foreign country, but she wouldn't say Israel that we're doing this on behalf of. But it's not clear what will stop the Iran war train. It's costing the U.S. a lot, though. It's probably costing the U.S. more than, it's definitely costing the U.S. more than anything that DOJ is finding in the U.S. agencies. I mean, how much does it cost to maintain just one aircraft carrier battle group in the Red Sea for a month? An enormous amount. How much does a Reaper drone cost? Reaper drones cost several $1 million. And they keep getting taken down over Yemen by Yemen's air defenses. But let's slash the Department of Education, or as Elon Musk called it in a meme, the Department of Education. It was misspelled. Aaron, anything else you want to add on Yemen?
Just to stress that I think just today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the deployment of 2 new Navy carriers to the Middle East to, bolster the operation against Yemen. And my point, aside from the immorality of doing all this to defend Israeli genocide, the Biden administration already tried all this. The Trump line is that, Biden was feckless. He never stood up to Ansar Allah, the Houthis, but Biden bombed Yemen multiple times as well.
Yeah,
it didn't work. The Ansar Allah is determined to stop the genocide and to, do what it can to stand in the way. And again, every time there was a ceasefire, they respected it. It's only when Israel violates its obligations, as they recently did by imposing a new blockade of Gaza, that Ansar Allah stepped in.